Good afternoon and welcome to the April edition of GRIDtalk by MethodGrid. My name is Rachel. I'm the Strategic Account Manager for MethodGrid and I will be your host today. So we are talking about our product roadmap. So of course I am joined by my wonderful colleague Jody, who is our Chief Product Officer. Hi Jody.
Hello. Hello everyone. Nice to be here.
So most of you already know us, but for those of you that are new to MethodGrid, let me just give you a little bit about us. So MethodGrid is an AI-empowered knowledge and process management platform. So what does that actually mean? MethodGrid empowers you to capture all of your wonderful methodologies, processes, any capture of knowledge to help you deliver in a consistent way. So this empowers your teams then to have all of the things that they need to do in the same place as the things that they're doing. So all of your task lists, your templates, your best practice examples, any video explainers, even e-learning can all be built into what we call digital playbooks. This means it streamlines all of your delivery, but we also get into knowledge as well. So we look at building out standard operating procedures, staff onboarding, employee handbooks, policies, bringing things that are often quite dry and lifeless into a digital space. That also means that they are super easy to keep up to date and they're really easy to use, ingest, and actually understand. So Jody, in terms of what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I'll take you through a quick agenda, everyone. So we're gonna look at the main work streams in our product roadmap for 2025. And we'll take a deeper dive into some of the features we've released so far in 2025, and that's around our Gantt chart tool. So we put baselines and critical path into that. So I'll give you a quick overview of those. After each section, we're going to do 3 deep dives into features we've built, a feature we're building, and a feature that's possibly building is in research and development, R&D. So after each section, we'll stop for Q&A there to see if there's any questions on that particular section, rather than save them all up to the end. So after each section, we'll have a clear slide so we can have some questions. I think you can ask questions in the little tool in Livestorm.
Yes, so in the right-hand side of your screen now, you will see there is a chat box. You can see our moderator, Tom. Hi, Tom. Is there if you need any help, if you have any technical issues, if you just want to chat with other participants, you can absolutely do that there. However, just below, you will see there is a button called questions. So if you have any questions specifically for myself or for Jody, as we are running through the presentation, please pop those in there. I will keep an eye on that. So that can be about any of the products that we are talking about, but also the product in general. So if you wanted to ask any questions about MethodGrid in general, please do feel free. The more questions, the better. We're here to help. So just before we jump into the main presentation, I know some of you are new to MethodGrid, so I just wanted to go through the lingo a little bit. So Jody will be referring to grids as we talk through. Now, grids are essentially digital playbooks. They are also referred to, as methodologies, processes, any capture of the broader knowledge. When we're talking about elements, those are the little tiles that live within the grids, and they are essentially deliverables, work packages, activities, they could be controls, but that is where the real crux of the knowledge is held. So all of the detail, the finer detail, the tasks, that sort of thing. So grids and elements are how we will be referring to them throughout this.
Thanks, Rach. Right. So I'm going to give everyone a quick overview of the roadmap for 2025. We've split our work this year into 3 major work streams in the dev and product teams. So going from left to right, we have an ongoing research and maintenance work stream. So everything in there, which is amber, is in progress. Green is completed, white to start. So in research and maintenance, we're talking about making optimizations to the platform as it exists now, making refactors to the platform to improve the way it works now, but also to lay groundwork for future features. And also in our research, we look to future features in our R&D program. And that's the third spotlight today will be on AI document drafting, which is something we've started to research in the last few months. The second work stream is all around our Gantt chart tool. So in MethodGrid, in the grids, you can have, a grid could also be a project. You have a Gantt chart to schedule that project. Grids can be put into folders. So you could have a folder with several grids for a client, for instance. And at that level, we have a portfolio Gantt chart. So you can view your entire portfolio, or you can just view individual projects. And in there, you're working, when you're scheduling, you're largely working in our Gantt chart. So we've actually released 2 new features into there already, which is baselining and critical path. We're now working on the ability to bring in multi-select. So in the Gantt, we have a data table. And in there, we're adding the ability so you can kind of use keyboard shortcuts, a bit like Excel, select this cell, this cell, this cell, this cell, change them all at once. So that'll give everyone the ability to like highlight a bunch of tasks in the Gantt and change all the durations to 2 days. You can bulk edit, basically, bulk select, bulk edit. Following that, in that work stream, we'll continue to add data points into the Gantt. So we'll display in that data table things like the RAG, whether an item's been flagged, the status, in progress, completed, all that good stuff. And you'll also have the ability to edit in there. So the bulk editing will start to apply to more data points as we progress through the year. And the final work stream is our AI work stream. So the first one there we've just completed is a total refactor of the way the grids work. And this was to support the way AI is going to talk to our grids in the future. It's also made the grids quicker, more responsive. So it's a great bit of refactoring. Kudos to my development colleagues for working on that over the last few months. Then Spotlight 2 will be what we've just started working on now, which is something we've talked about in the past, but I can now take you through what it's actually going to look like and how it's going to work, which is AI source grounding. So AI model comes with some knowledge out of the box. You can now ground it in your own knowledge as one-offs into each input. And from there, we'll then move into the AI assistant, which is more your traditional kind of AI chatbot to talk to your grids, talk to your elements, talk to your knowledge, and generally assist you. So let's dive into those ones that are available now. So the first thing I'll show you is the baselines. So here's our Gantt chart. So now at the top of your Gantt chart, you can set, I've numbered these, so 1 through 5, you can set baselines. You've got baseline 1, 2, 3. Number 2, you can display the baselines. So that is showing the baseline on the chart itself, the bars, the smaller bars below the main bar. And then you can highlight the baselines and it will show green if they're ahead of schedule, blue if they're on schedule, or red if it's behind schedule. You can also just toggle on if you've got, say you've set 3 baselines, you might not want to see all of them at once. So you can decide which ones to show and you can just hide them all together as well. And then you've got each data point for a baseline. So when you set a baseline, it's going to capture the data at the point at which you set it. So the start dates, the end dates, the duration. And then as you make changes after that to the project, it will start to show the variance to each baseline. So whether you're some days behind schedule or some days in front of schedule. And you can go through and analyze that as you go in your projects. So baselines can be set at the grid level in your project. They can be viewed at the portfolio level as well, but they can't be set at the portfolio level because a portfolio is showing multiple projects and quite possibly you don't want to set the baseline on every project in that view. I'll go through that now, a little animation to show you how it works. So you set a baseline. It'll give you a small warning just because if you've got a baseline already set for baseline 3, it will overwrite it. But you've got 1 through 3. So it's as simple as that to set it. So say you've just set up your project, you've put in all your dates and your durations. At that point, you might set baseline 1. And then you've got it there going forward into your project. And then in terms of highlighting, so you can turn them on and off. You see on the bar on the right, it's showing 3 separate bars because I've got 3 baselines set in here. And I can select which one to show. And you'll see on the right, it's hiding those. So the highlight baseline, you'll see if they go gray or they go red, blue, or green, depending on whether that item in the Gantt is on, ahead, or behind schedule. So there's quite a lot of visual analysis you can do when you start to set baselines in the Gantt. You can as well, if you set a baseline and then subsequently need to change an item in that baseline, you can edit each data point in the baseline as well if you need to. So, if you've set a baseline and, oh, that's wrong, I need to change that, you can go in and just edit individual baselines as well. Or you can just change everything and overwrite the entire baseline. And then this is a useful tip. You can actually, this data table gets quite large as we keep adding data points to it. We all know Gantt has a lot of information in it. So showing you here is that you can actually show and hide the columns you want. So when this cycles back to the beginning, essentially it's hiding the baseline 1, 2, and 3, which are a bunch of grouped columns if I don't need to see them. And then I can bring them back. So we'll run through it once more. So here I hide them, which removes it from the data table. I can also reorder these columns, and you can do this for each Gantt. So once I've done this, what this is then showing is if I then close the Gantt, it remembers for that particular grid my preferred layout, if you will. So in that grid, from now on, whenever I open it, it would have duration in that position and it would hide the baselines. So you can kind of configure these columns to how you want them.
In terms of that being your preferred layout, is that for you as a user, or is that for the grid for everyone that is then viewing it?
That is personal to you. So it'll be cached in your browser. It'll be in your browser local storage, and it will remember the next time you open in that grid. Yeah, not for everyone. Everyone can have their own way of using the Gantt. So critical path, also available now. If I flick to here, you'll show it in here. So the critical path, I mean, everyone uses Gantt before we know what this is, but it's essentially when I toggle it on, it's going to highlight every item in that Gantt chart which directly impacts the end date. And those items are then on the critical path. So they could be, they could have a dependency. You can see in this example, they're all in a dependency chain, or it could be the longest task in a parent, and that is then the critical task in that one because it's the longest one and it's all impacting the end date. But essentially, this is a visual toggle. You can then see if you've got 400 items in your Gantt, perhaps only 50 of them are on the critical path. It's a quick and easy way to toggle it on and off. And you can see that in this particular example, we're doing this in the portfolio Gantt. That's multiple projects there, project A, C, and B. So it will work in either. So you simply toggle it on, it highlights them, toggle it off when you won't want to see it. And you can view that in the project or the portfolio. So I am going to pause there if anyone's got any questions about either those two features or anything we'd like to see in the Gantt in the future, those kind of things.
So I know a lot of our clients have been asking about bulk assigning from a different level. So at the moment, of course, we can bulk assign at the task level. Is that multi-editor that you mentioned going to bring more functionality to our bulk assign?
Yes. So we already have in the Gantt table, you can already see who is assigned to each item, be it the grid, the stage, the element, the stage gate, or a task. We will bring in the ability to change who the assignee is in that table, which will then partner up with that bulk select, and you'd be able to select 20 tasks in a list and assign them all at once. So yeah, that will be part of bulk edit.
Amazing. We do have a question in the chat. Just to note, please do pop your questions into the question section just so that I don't miss them. But Sam, I have clocked this one. So he has said, how have you determined what to incrementally improve in the Gantt functionality?
So good question. Yeah. So when we first set out to put the Gantt in, we knew we needed a kind of an MVP, a minimum viable product, to make the Gantt kind of best in class for a knowledge management platform. So we're working towards that now. Actually, baselines and critical path were one of the final things to put in. So then the more data points in the bulk edit, we think we're largely there in terms of functionality in the Gantt. How did we decide on that? Well, way back, I think it must be 2 years ago now, when we started the Gantt project, we actually went out to all our major clients who were using it, particularly in delivery. That was Oxford Brookes at the university who were using it for small and large works there, and various others who were using it in capital projects, and asked them what's kind of the minimum requirement you need in a Gantt chart to use it. And then we did a classic Moscow on those and went with those. So critical path and baseline were in the must-have column, along with exporting to PDF, exporting to Excel. I think, to be honest, you're right, there are tons. We're never going to replace Primavera. We're a level above that, really, in terms of assurance of projects, not down in that deep nitty-gritty down there. So, it's never going to have all the features that a Primavera would have, but it certainly has everything that a Gantt chart you would expect it to have, like Microsoft Project or something like that. And also to say, I don't think it will ever be finished, to be honest. I think we'll constantly have requests to add new things into the Gantt. So yeah, if you have any thoughts about what you'd like to see in there, then keep them coming, because like most things in any SaaS application, it's never finished, right?
And especially for us, as a lot of you who are on this webinar will know, we really take client feedback seriously. Everything we build is based on client feedback. We don't just assume we know best. So, I mean, as Jody mentioned, Gantt came to life purely because of client feedback. So please do keep giving us your ideas. We always take them on board, and we try our best to build as much as we can of the things that you're looking for. So Meg has asked a question here. So does the Excel optimize quite well? Elsewhere, when transposed, the data is hard to read or misaligns. So when we're exporting.
Okay, yeah, well, you should be able to export that entire, the data table of the Gantt. Everything should come out. It will export it based on the view you're looking at the time you export it. So things like if you've hidden columns and things like that, it will certainly hide some of those. But I mean, you've got the choice of either a CSV or an Excel format. Yeah, I mean, the data should just come out as is.
We haven't found any misalignment or hard to read data points in there.
Well, I mean, if it's a big data table, I mean, there can be a lot of data in it, which I suppose, it can be a bit jarring to go from the user interface to a straight data table. Certainly the PDF, sometimes when you export to PDF, that can be challenging when we've got a particularly large Gantt, because, unless most of the time you're going to want that in an A4 format, probably in landscape. If there's 500 items in there, it's going to be multiple page. It certainly does its best. It's pretty good.
Perfect. Great. Okay,
moving on. So taking these in stages. So those ones are released. They're available now. Go and have a play with those. Try them out. This, we've just kicked off our AI source grounding project. So this is now being built as we speak by the dev team. Let me take you through a bit. So the first thing is kind of, what do we mean? So source grounding is kind of an AI term. I've asked our internal AI expert for the definition of this, and this is what we have. So essentially, source grounding allows you've probably seen it in other tools like ChatGPT and Copilot and things like that. You can upload a document, or indeed your prompt, you're grounding it and having it return data based on that extra data you've given it. And it goes in at the input, and it's a kind of a one-off bit of data point that goes up. It uses it for that chat, and then it's gone. So it is different. So when people think of this, they sometimes think, isn't this just training or fine tuning? And no, it's not. It's very different. So the model training is what they would use to build the model. So ChatGPT initially was trained on a bunch of stuff, and that's now what it kind of knows. I've sort of defined it's what it knows out of the box. That's the model. It knows that. So you can then fine tune a model, which would be putting more of that data into its training, into the parameters, which is fine if it's your model and you're hosting it internally. But the thing, once it goes into those parameters, it's not really going to come out. It's kind of there forever. So if you're on a SaaS platform, you're probably not going to want to do that. If you're building your own one internally, you probably are going to fine tune it. It's your model now. So in terms of our platform, we're using source grounding. So when you when you're using AI in our platform to generate content, the sources you're giving it are telling it what to base this content on, so to speak. So in the Copilot analogy, I might upload a Word document of a strategy document and say, make me this again, but summarize it or something like that. So then it's now grounded in that document. It's not just, I haven't just said, make me a template on X, and it's just using its model training data. It's using that training, so that's how it knows how to write content. It's also basing it on what we've given it. So that's the basis of source grounding. Hopefully I've done that justice. So here, these are the designs of how, I mean, never say never, it may not finally look like this as it hits the real world, but essentially this is how this feature will look when we launch it in 2025. So we've taken the approach that we are a knowledge management platform, and it could be that people want to put a lot of sources within MetaGrid in order to ground multiple grids in different subjects. So we're going to introduce the concept of source libraries. So in this table layout, you can see it's just a layout, and I've got libraries which I can call whatever I want. And then into those libraries, I can upload files, largely Word documents, PDF. I can also point them at a web page, a public web page initially. That is telling the AI in this library, these are the documents and the websites you can source ground on. This essentially just gives you a way of organizing all this rather than just ad hoc throwing it into a chat interface. We're giving you the option to actually sort these into libraries, name them what you want. So I could have a library for how we do a project brief, and I could have 3 or 4 documents in there. Now, whenever I'm working in a grid and I want to ground the AI, I can simply select that library and it will ground itself on those 3 documents. And I can keep doing that. And as the controller of the library, if then one of those documents is updated, I can just delete one and put the other one in. And just to note, when the AI uses this source grounding, it's literally passed to the model. We use Microsoft Azure. It's passed there once for the purpose, and then it comes back with a response, and then it's not saved. So it's stored on MetaGrid. It's passed to the AI for the purposes of generating your content, and then it's not stored. It's not used for training. It's completely secure. The other advantage of putting it into these libraries is we know that access control is very important to a lot of our clients. So this means once you've built these libraries, you can then access control them and decide who has access to either delete documents from here or add documents or indeed view documents. So you can control who is controlling your sources. So you make a bunch of source libraries, put documents in there. These can then be assigned to grids. So here we're just showing if I click on which grids are using this library, we'll give you an interface to see which grids have been grounded on these particular documents in that library. So going into the grid, we'll have a new section for AI settings. So a grid can have its own AI settings. And in here, I can tell this grid, well, when you're creating content for me, use this tone and language. I can also give it, you see here, I can give it context. So I can say, well, this project is about X. I'm building a railway bridge, or I can give all the details pertaining to the project in there, and it's stored. I don't have to do it again. So I've set tone and language. I can tell it to write in my particular style, and I can tell it the context of what this grid is about. Then I can start to beyond that. So you could just do that, and it's kind of grounded with those prompts. But then I can also, using the big blue button, I can say, as well as that, I want you to use these sources when you're creating. Make these sources available for when people are creating content in this grid. And you just tick the ones you want, and we put them in, and now they're available. The long-term plan here is that initially this source grounding will be used to generate content. So we've got AI templates. You can generate a whole element's worth of content in one click based off this source grounding and the tone. When we bring in the more traditional chat interface, you'll also be able to tell that interface which of these sources you want it to use. Because you might decide, actually, I don't want it to use any of the original sources. I only want it to talk to the grid. You'll be able to configure that as well. So now I've got all my sources. They're all organized over here in libraries. And now I'm just telling this grid, right, you use these couple of libraries. That's what you use. So that's now set at the grid level. it could be that's enough for the entire grid. But what will give you the ability to do is when you open an element and it's blank, like this one, I can then decide, well, actually, I'm fine. I'm going to use, this is showing what is set at the grid level. That's fine. I'm going to use that. Or I can decide to override it. So if the grid was based on the project overall, now I'm writing the project brief. For instance, I might change that, the element context to, you're an expert in writing project briefs, please write the project brief. And I might narrow down the source library to just the project briefs one. And now that element itself is grounded, it's drilled down into more grounding. And this is how it will work throughout the app. So at the top, we'll have the grid, that's grounded. I got the element when I'm making content. I can use the grid or I can adjust it, and down into the content tweaker as well, which we'll see in the beginning. So now I would probably use our AI templates. If you've already, these are available now, you can use these now. So if I was creating this project brief, I'd select the template I want to use, which also contains some prompts to help the AI build out the content. And I've now ground it with tone and language, the context, and any sources that I wanted it to use. It's then going to whir away and it's going to build the whole thing for you. Tasks, everything. And off it will come. And it's created the whole lot, a bit like this. When we return that, then each of our content areas also has the AI assistant built in. So where we've got purpose there, we can see it's done a couple of sentences for the purpose. Each of those areas has a little AI button. And when you click that, you're just adjusting the content that's in there. So if it returns all the content and you just want to tweak one bit, you can use this little tweaker to use it. The grounding will also be available on this. So each time you're drilling down, it's optional. So I've got my grid settings. I did it in the element settings. Perhaps now for this particular one, I can then open up again that source grounding and say, actually, for this one, don't ground in anything. I want you to just do this. So each time you use the AI, you can ground it in your central source library, or you can override it and ground it specific to that task that you're doing. And that will be source grounding. So hopefully next time we can show an early alpha demo of that.
So please fire in any questions to the questions section. In terms of managing those libraries there, Jody, obviously they could get quite hefty. Are there ways to categorize them, or different ways to label them perhaps? What are we thinking in terms of management? So
you'll be able to name each one. So they're the libraries themselves are a categorization, if you like. You could think of them like folders, I suppose. You know, I've got a folder, I've got a Windows Explorer, I've got a folder called project briefs, and in there I've got a bunch of that. So the name of the library is its categorization. So you can use it in that way. But also at the top of each of those columns, we'll have like filtering and a search. So you can just go ahead and search for the content.
Sam has a question here. Any capacity constraints with source grounded uploads?
So initially, no. We do have a maximum file size limit. We don't limit the amount of documents you can upload into MetaGrid. We kind of have a fair use, policy, but in theory, no. There's a maximum size. I think it's 50 meg or something like that. It's pretty big. There will be a slight constraint on the formats you can upload. So initially, it will definitely be Word documents and PDFs. But in the future, we'll add new file types that you can upload. But we figure those are your two key ones to start with. We then also plan, once we've got this MVP out and it's in the wild and people are using it and it's working, we'll bring our document management system integration into it as well. And we should be able to allow you to point the source grounding at a SharePoint folder. And then you can just use the documents in the SharePoint folder and manage them there if you want.
Source grounding direct from URLs, yes.
Yes. So, if you wanted to say, open up one of the APM websites, how to do a project brief web page, you'd be able to put that URL in as a source. And then each time it uses it, it'll go off and refetch it. So it's not like it goes in once and that's it. It'll fetch it each time to check it's updated. Convert that page into AI ingestible stuff, and then it will use it for your source grounding. So yeah, you could have a folder which is just pointed at various web pages. And if your company's got externally facing content that you want to use, as long as it's public and the AI can access it, that will be fine.
Just in relation to that, Jody, in the future, will we be looking to be able to ingest intranet sites, so things that aren't necessarily public, but perhaps we can integrate with in the future?
I think potentially yes, because when we bring in SharePoint document management, that will be based on your login. So at the moment, when you go to pick a SharePoint file, you have to log in with your Microsoft. So in theory, if we've got access and it's allowed to your SharePoint through that login, it could go and fetch a SharePoint page or a document. But that would be it would be controlled. You'd decide whether you want to allow that or not when we do that.
Perfect. And you did touch on this earlier, but I know that it is a real concern for a lot of companies and a lot of our clients around losing IP, letting the models train themselves on their IP, and the ring fencing side of things is just so important to people. I just wonder if you could just reiterate that point a little bit more, touch on our security, and obviously it's extremely important to us as well.
Yes, yeah, it's absolutely vital. I mean, every model now will say that it's not. You have to, if you're using ChatGPT for free, there's every chance they are using that to train it on. If you're using their enterprise, they're very specific and they're not. And it's the same with Copilot, and it's the same with us. We're not using it. Go back to that slide with the model, the fine tuning, the source grounding. We're specifically using the source grounding method because it's not going to be training any model on your data. Those sources will simply be sent to the model on Microsoft Azure in the UK. The model will process it, come back with the answer of the content, and then it's forgotten. It's gone. It's a one-off pass. So it only really leaves us for that moment while it's ingested by the AI. It comes up with its response. It comes back. It forgets everything, and it's moved on. It's ready for the next input. It's a one-off, one input at a time kind of process. So you don't need to worry about your data living in Azure's OpenAI model for the rest of time, because it won't be using it for training anyway.
And we're also, you touched on it, they're not going to be sending any data outside of certainly the EU, but outside of the UK, generally speaking, that's not something we're looking to do ever. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. If people have requirements where data has to be in a different geolocation, which we do, and we have people in other geolocations, we can spin up the Azure OpenAI model in any data center, and we can have your account then use that one. So for your purposes, if you wanted your one to be using the one in Germany, it could connect to that one instead of the one in UK. It can use either, whichever is geographically more suitable. And the same goes for a MethodGrid account. We can work with you to put that in any geolocation you need it ready.
Amazing.
Okay, next one then is we're into the R&D world next. So this came about a bit of an internal hackathon, a bit of a client actually came to us with a challenge of how to move their Word templates into a new format. So a lot of the content's remaining the same, but the format is all changing. And, when you've got 500 of these documents, that's a long task. Can AI do it? And we built a concept to do that, where AI can figure out and then essentially reformat the document. You give it the document, it reformats it. So we have a kind of working prototype of that. But then we thought, well, the logical step to take this now is not just reformatting a document, but actually helping your users complete the document. So if someone's got a template they need to do as part of a project, can AI help them write that document in super quick time? Okay, so instead of spending, 2 hours writing one section of a project brief, can the AI take you through it and be given the prompts to actually give you that first draft, a solid first draft? You give it a little once over and a tweak, you're done in 10% of the time. So that's the theory. We've got some kind of mock-ups of how this could work in MethodGrid. So the way we see this working is that you would actually, the AI prompts themselves and the data would actually live within your Word documents. we're going with Word documents as the ubiquitous one here. So you can see in that example, it's a strategy report. I've got square bracketed bits where I want the AI to fill in things, but I could also equally have that as blank and just give the AI a prompt of, I need you to write this in this style and that style. You could complete a whole Word document with these prompts contained within it, and then put that into the MethodGrid element, into one of our document areas where it's then available as a template to be used by your users. So once you've done that, our standard little button to trigger AI, we're saying this is the template. We know this is an AI template because it's got the prompts within the Word document. I click that, we trigger our AI assistant, and it's now going to step through. It knows what grid it's in and the context of that because it's been grounded. It knows its name, various things like that. It's got the template. You've told it where to insert these various things in these templates, and now it's going to step the user through completing this. We envisage this being kind of section by section, so each heading in a Word document normally denoting a section. So then the team member is prompted by the AI to go through, and it will start filling in the sections for them based on the information it's got, allowing the user to preview each section before it's completed. So the user could say, actually make this shorter. Actually, that should be that. Just like you would talk to ChatGPT or something when you're getting responses back. You can keep tweaking it, It goes through each section, and at the end, it's ready to go. It's created that document. So it's taken everything that would normally just be in a big mess in the chat interface is now actually the AI has taken everything you've told it, and it's created that first draft of the document for you, which then you can just download and view and do whatever you want with, or quite possibly will just allow you to click a button and it's attached it to that element, to that project, or to a task as evidence. And that is the vision for AI document drafting. So taking it away from just copying and pasting from the chat and actually allowing you to build a library of Word templates which work with AI. I'd be interested to see if there's any questions about this. If there's not, I've got some that I might want to pose myself to the on the call.
Please feel free to pop your questions in. Obviously, this is a little bit groundbreaking, especially for our clients in the large infrastructure projects realm. We have a client who has, they have 50 odd deliverables per project that they have, to pass through their gates, etc., which just takes an extraordinarily long time to put them all together. Often they will meet a gate and be missing things. So just to have that, accelerator built into the platform where they're doing all of their task tracking, I just think is going to be an incredible step forward for that, large infrastructure industry in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a time-saving tool. And I feel like our approach that you build your own templates, they live in Word, they're yours. Our AI is just using them, and we've trained it to use them properly. That's going to be a huge, and it's going to be and it's bespoke to you, to your account. So each template will be bespoke to you, and it will step through without you having to go into one of these AI no-code builders and do it all yourself. Anyone who can create a Word document can create a template, and it will then work with AI using fairly simple bracketed content, and that should be it. That should be enough. But so kind of questions around that. I mean, I was be interested. So we've built it in such a way that we would integrate it into MethodGrid. That's our core. So I wondered if it would this be useful to people as a standalone app that you just drop documents in and it does it ad hoc, not necessarily tied to an element. We could just have it, here's a document, help me fill it in. And by the same process, are there places where this could integrate? I mean, the obvious one being Microsoft, right? Integrate it into Copilot in some way. Sort of three possible channels that you could use this in beyond MethodGrid as well.
So Sam has said, thinking about those infrastructure type clients, anything in the AI roadmap piece downwind that could enable sponsors, gate reviewers to engage with the status project without reading the documents?
And that's interesting. So yes, I mean, we have thought about that with the, as long as I got this right. So we have thought about that when it comes to the, so on our 3 work streams, one of the bottom ones in AI was just sort of generic AI assistant, the classic, we're going to put the ability to chat in there. We've often discussed, trying to think of the best word. So, you could go into a grid and say, give me a summary of what's happened in the last week. And it will be able to go through, well, this task was done, this document was put up. So that would kind of go some way to giving you that kind of instant AI-based review. So that could be, if you've got tasks in a stage gate or you're waiting for a stage gate to be signed off, we can model it in such a way to say, well, you need to check. When someone asks this, you need to check all these things and give them a summary of what's been done, which I think would do that. And then the logical one from that is once we've got the grounding in kind of generic documents, we'll also start to allow it to be grounded in the documents potentially that have been uploaded to the grid. So then you'd be able to get the summary of a document. So it's kind of split, summary of everything we've got in method grid, the grid and what's going on there. And then potentially you've got 20 odd documents in that grid. We could look to summarize those as well.
Just leaning into that a little bit further, would we be looking to build it? I think where Sam is going here is obviously an end user or a team member can fill out a template poorly. That's always a risk. Is the AI going to be able to delve into that for a reviewer so that a reviewer doesn't have to open up and check each independent section of that document? Would the AI be smart enough to say, actually, this is not compliant, this particular section of this is not going to meet compliance and will fail the gate?
Yes, we can 100% do that and build that in. In fact, it's quite close to some of the demos we've shown around lessons learned and the capture of lessons learned. We've done R&D in the past, and we've got demos of this, and we're looking to pursue this as another project as well. Is when people are capturing lessons learned, sometimes it can be like one sentence. We didn't have enough bricks, which is nice, but it's not particularly in depth. So we built the AI so it would say, can you elaborate? Can you do this? What specifically wouldn't you have enough of? Why wasn't there enough? Was it delivery? Was it because the delivery was delayed? Was it this? Was it that? So kind of steering people to produce the best lessons learned they could. So you can easily see how that could be mapped to the template as well. So initially when a lot of the template in these kind of drafting things, quite a lot of the template might already have quite a lot of content and it's kind of just inserting bits, but there might be quite large sections where it's a narrative of sorts. So the AI would certainly be able to prompt, well, it's going to give you that first narrative, its first attempt. And then it would be down to the user to say, no, make it better, make it this. So as long as the AI, the prompt has told it, be thorough, this is all the things you need to include, then in theory, just by want of using the AI assistant to create the document, will have created a better document.
Obviously, AI prompts are a bit of a thing. You can have good ones and bad ones. Is Method Grid going to be able to help with those initial templates? Obviously, people can go off and build their own templates in Word that have prompts in them, but if they're not producing the right results, is that something that they can come back to us and say, we need help?
Yeah, I think, totally. I mean, we'll definitely make we'll make examples available. So, you're not just presented with a blank sheet of paper and start creating it. We give you some like best practice examples. But then our PS team are experts in this area. They, prompt engineering is their thing. So if you wanted to take 400 templates and now 400 Word templates and turn them into 400 AI enabled Word templates, they could help you with that and get them humming.
Perfect. We do actually have another question just based on source grounding. So Mihal's asked, are you planning to implement the use of external open source knowledge bases as part of your source grounding feature?
I think, I mean, but for the MVP, we've gone with the basic, you can upload a file, you can point it at a website. The idea of those source libraries is totally that we will add new sources to be available. So that would be it just point at a SharePoint document, point at a SharePoint folder. I see no reason if there was demand and you said, actually, I want it to point at my e-learning system and ground itself in that should be possible. And a lot of those systems have, I forget, Scorn or something it's called, isn't it? And it's a machine readable format to pass it between e-learning systems. So if the AI gets access to that and you give it access and it uses it for that one-off input, I see no reason why any source that is readable enough that it could be used. You'd have to give it permission. We'd have to build an integration for it to allow it, because by default, if I go to one of those, if it's a public course, I think it could probably just do it page by page straight away. But most of these courses tend to be behind a wall of some kind of login wall. So in that case, it would just be a case of building the integration, which you would then say, well, I'm using e-learning platform X. I'm allowing MethodGrid access to this one course, and it could use it for the inputs as and when it's needed. And it wouldn't technically store it. It would just use it one-off if someone decided to use it as a source for content generation or for chatting with the grid. But yeah, I think it could be the world's your oyster, really, as long as it's available and it can be read by AI.
So we have some clients in the COSEC space, and where my mind is going there is that if they have like a transcript from an AGM, for example, would they be able to use that as a source, but for creating those documents, if that makes sense? So they have a standard template for, the minutes of an AGM. They've just taken the transcript. Are we going to be able to join those two up to take away that kind of legwork for them?
Yeah. So you could, in theory, upload that transcript and you could create a source library, which is project Y, and I'm going to upload all the documents to do with project Y, and they're now in that source library. If you set the AI to ground in that library of documents, it can freely go off and use those for your prompts. So if you kind of went in and said, actually, just ground yourself on this transcript, now do things for me. That is largely how it would work. So we'll probably expand the source grounding at some point to include documents that have been uploaded into the grid, for instance, or linked to in the grid, so that the project grid itself starts to build up its own bunch of sources that are specific to that project as well. But initially it'll be kind of knowledge sources. But in theory, there's no reason you can put whatever you like in that library, really.
I can see that being a big time saver for a lot of people outside of the project space as well. So, I mean, it's all very mind-blowing. So, please, any other questions before we get into wrapping up? Pop them into the chat. For those of you that are new to MethodGrid, please do feel free to pop over to our website, which is, of course, methodgrid.com. Over on the website, you will find past episodes of GRIDtalk. So lots and lots of different subjects. There are guest clients on there. So all sorts of things that you can take a look at. Of course, when you're on the website, you can click through to book a demo with one of our friendly team members. They will take you through the platform, but also answer any questions you might have around how we can help you and your organization, whether it is with project management, process management, or knowledge management. As Jody mentioned, we do have an expert team of professional services executives as well. So if you are sitting there saying, Rachel, it's all very well if you have a whole bunch of IP ready to go, ready to be digitalized, but what if I'm starting from scratch? What if I don't really know where to start? we can definitely help you there too. So we have lots and lots of expertise in building out templates, building out processes right from the very beginning. So please do just click that book a demo button and come and have a chat with us. I'm sure that we can help you out. Just looking over at the chat side, it's Tom. So yes, Tom is sharing a few resources there. So please feel free to click through to those. And of course, you can contact myself if you have any account related questions. If you have any technical related questions, please feel free to reach out to Jody and we would be more than happy to help.
Yeah, I mean, if this is sort of triggered ideas in your mind for this AI document drafting, source grounding, whatever, please drop me an email. We can jump on a call. I'd be really happy to hear your ideas for it.
Equally, we will be running a live event very soon, in a few months' time, GRIDtalk Live, and that will be around AI as well. For those of you who are already clients, you will, of course, be receiving your invites very shortly. Anyone that is new to MethodGrid and would be interested in joining that live event, please do drop me a note. That we are, everyone is welcome. So please do feel free to reach out to me and I will send you out an invite. Lots going on in that event. It is not all around our platform. It's about the industry, AI in general. So, lots for us to learn, lots for you to learn, and hopefully you'll find it really beneficial. Perfect. Okay, it doesn't look like there are any other questions, so I'm going to wrap up there. But thank you so much, Jody, for taking the time out of your busy life as our Chief Product Officer. It is always appreciated. And thank you all for joining. Anyone that is watching on demand as well, thank you so much. And we will see you all at the May GRIDtalk. Keep an eye out for the announcement on what we're going to be talking about in May. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.